Okay, so hello guys. I hope you are all doing well. So thank you for joining today's session. Uh, it's gonna be a hot topic. How you guys price your work as devs. I know it has been a real issue when it comes to pricing. Basically, if you're a beginner or a starter or someone who's new to the field. So today's topic is all about pricing, contracts, and all legal issues that affects developers. So on board, we have David Mabera, who will be the moderator for the session. We have Danvik Miller and and Alistair Holmes is the Flutter community organizer for Zimbabwe. I guess you guys can say hi. So over to you, Mabira, as the others greeting us.
Thank you, Eric. Much appreciated. Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's Flutter meetup. Our meetup is online today due to COVID issues, but we thank God for this moment. So everyone, welcome on board. We are looking forward to have an interesting and lively discussion. So feel free to post in your questions on the chat. Today with us we have a small panel that will be steering our discussions, and so they'll just be guiding the discussions, but we'll be relying more on your questions to be able to assist us to actually know how do we price our projects as developers, and I believe we should all we'll all be able to gain. Today's discussions has been divided into two sections. The first part is we'll have panelists who are developers, and they're going to share with us from their experience how they've been pricing their projects. And then the second part is the legal part, whereby we are going to have a lawyer explain to us how do you protect yourself in the pricing, that once you start doing a project, how do you end up getting paid, and you don't end up having court cases or a client refusing to pay, and if they refuse to pay, how can you take it up as per the law and just ensure that you are also protected from that end, from the client's end, that they get to meet their end of the bargain once you've also done your end of the bargain in project delivery. So that is how our discussion for today is going to be. So we have our panelists, Danvik, Alistair, and I think later on we might have Frank on board. And also our other panelists will be you members who will be asking questions. So feel free to raise your hand or even just drop your question on the chat. And that way we can be able to steer our discussions forward. So to just start us off, I will want to have our panelists and the lawyer just introduce themselves and actually just say what it is that they do. I can see Clinton has raised their hand, or was he testing the functionality? So I think I'll just say to Clinton, were you testing the functionality, or we move ahead?
Probably he's testing the functionality.
Okay, then. So we have our panelists. We have Danvik, and also we have Alistair, and also we have Victor Olau, who is a lawyer. So I would want them to do an introduction of themselves, what they do, where they work, and for how long they've been working. So I would want to start with Danvik. Kindly, Danvik, do an introduction of yourself, and then we can move ahead. And I'll ask the panelists to also turn on their cameras so that fellow members can just be able to see you.
Sorry, I don't know if my setup is good enough for me to turn on the camera.
Okay.
Let's see. Is there anything?
No, it's okay.
So my name is Danvik. So my name is Danvik. I'm a software developer for the past, I think, close to 10 years now. I'm the founder of Infinity Soft Technologies. I'm based in Nairobi. And today I'm not feeling very well. In fact, I told Eric I'm not feeling very well. I would have liked to just be part of it, but now that I've been highlighted as the first one, I think I may not talk much because I'm having a bit of a cold. I don't know whether I should go get tested or what, but thank you. Thank you. I'll look forward to having a productive discussion about this.
Thanks, Danvik. So you are a developer, isn't it?
Sure.
What platforms do you develop for?
My initial platform was, I learned Android around 2012. Then later on, I changed to web. Mostly I've been doing PHP and Node and basically JavaScript-based stuff. Then I think going on the JavaScript side, then that introduced me back to mobile through things like Cordova, Ionic, and what's not. Till when I discovered Flutter in 2018, around 2018, and I think that's where my career is heading, just doing mobile most of the time. I've developed a couple of packages. A few people know that they have been utilizing them in our community. So I'm also a bit into open source technologies and what's not. So that is part of my whole vibe and platform. Yes.
Thanks, Danvik. I can see our other panelist has joined us, and that is Frank Tamra. So Frank, we are just doing introductions of the panelists. So I'd want next is Alista can go next. Just introduce yourself, what you do. Yeah, karibu Alista.
Okay, so I'm done with introducing, yeah?
Wanted Alista to go first, and then Frank,
okay,
you can follow.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know if Alista is ready.
Yes, thanks. I was trying to unmute. Thanks for having me over. Sorry, my video I can't really show because my data, you won't end up hearing the audio, but I'll just go ahead with the introduction. So yeah, my name is Alistair Holmes. I'm from Zimbabwe. So I'm just joining and visiting you guys today to see what you're up to. Okay, so right now I'm working as a Flutter mobile developer. I'm working as a contractor for a company called Cubed, which is a company based in the United States, and I'm working remotely for them. And what we basically do is we build some mobile solutions for different companies in real estate and also in the automotive industry. Before I started working for them though, and before I started Flutter, I started my development career in 2015. I started learning all the web technologies, from WordPress to just normal basic HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. With the skills that I got from there, I started freelancing. So doing a few websites here and there for clients. And then as I started doing mobile development, I also started freelancing and making apps for clients and businesses as well. So yeah, that's me.
Thank you, Alista, from all the way from Southern Africa. Welcome on board. I also see we have Harun, one of our panelists. He'll also be introducing himself after Frank. Frank, karibu. And hope the members can also be able to just see you so that when they pass by you, they can say hi.
Okay. Then there's no problem. Let me introduce myself then. Yeah. So I don't know if you can see me.
Yes.
Okay, cool. So Frank Tamra is my name. I am a mobile developer. I like saying nowadays mobile developer because I think I play around with the Flutter mostly nowadays. Yeah, on the cross-platform front. So that's I guess that's who I am. In terms of programming, I think I've been programming for a while now, but I've played around from web technologies, and then finally just permanently shifted to C++ at some point, writing like linking applications, that is like making them perform better and faster and things like that. And then after that, that's when I just decided to like, you know what, let me focus 100% on like mobile with some elements of C++. So that's what I do on a daily basis. Other than that, I think I am a cook. I cook food for fun, and I grow things. I grow a lot of things. So I have like a small plantation inside my house. My house is like a house, but then there's plantation or that. So that's just it. I think the others will talk about them later.
Thanks, Frank. Is one of the very active community members. He likes building our communities for developers. Thanks. We have Harun, Wangareka, karibu. You can also do an introduction of yourself.
So hello everyone.
Hi.
I'll be turning my video in a few, not right now. As you have said, I'm Harun Wangereka, Android developer at AppsLab. I've been developing for quite some time, maybe close to 4 years right now. Yeah, apart from maybe developing, I'm also passionate on maybe writing technical articles and giving presentations. Yeah, so that's just a bit about myself.
Thank you, Harun. Next, we have our legal officer on board. It's called Victor Olao, or if you'd like, Victor Munai. I think he's an advocate of the High Court. He practices litigation, commercial law, civil law, land law, employment law, technology, and constitutional laws. But let me leave him to do a better introduction of himself. Karibu, Victor. You can unmute your mic. So as Victor is getting ready, kindly any question, post it on the chat and we'll take it up from there. Yes, Victor, karibu.
So Victor is my name, Victor Olao. I'm an advocate. I do a bit of practice within Nairobi and wider Kenya, and in various aspects, technology and IT being one of them. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Victor. So straight on, we'll just go to the discussion of the day. And our topic was how to price your work as a developer. One thing is that I know we have different developers on board, not only Flutter developers, we have web-based developers, WordPress developers, and just anyone building on any platform as long as you are developing a project, because I think that the discussion today cuts across any platform that you are developing for. And so the first question that I would like to pose to our panelists is that before we even can price a project, where do we start from? Before you even think, I need to price this project, what are the basics that you need to set on the ground before you even start pricing a project? From any of our panelists, either Alista, Danvik, Harun, any can start us off. Yeah.
I think one of the basic things you do before you start a project is understanding the requirements. And I think that's where most developers have a problem. And like basically that's a problem that will transcend through the whole project. If you don't get the requirements correctly, I think that's where someone boils down and tells you like, I just need a small app that looks like Uber or something like that. Like they boil down the requirements to the point where it's very hard to understand, and you just come up with the random value, and they will ask the value of the project at that point. For me, yeah. I don't like giving a quotation in terms of pricing at that point. I would really like to understand if it's a project I'm doing for a client. I'd like to understand more about the project, because even if someone tells you an app like Uber are very keen on sharing what they do internally. You know the things that are being done, and that's a very big company doing very big things. So if someone just tell you, now that you're a developer and maybe you have interacted with something like that, I think that's where you need to now ask the client which aspects, and for them to list them down so that you can understand the project before you even commit to doing the project, not even before you give up a proposal or a quotation, but basically just before you allow yourself to go ahead with the project. Yeah.
Okay. So Danvik is saying that you just need to first understand the project requirements, the scope. I want to ask Alista, as a freelance developer working for a foreign company, how do you price their projects, or what model is it that you are using to work for them? And also think, Frank, yes, Frank.
Yeah, I just want to add something. So sorry for cutting it short. I think one of the things before we talk about pricing, and this is something I've seen, I think especially for us here in Africa, There's this system of being a broker. We like it a lot. So one, never take up a job if you know you can't do it. Don't take up a job if you know you can't do it, because I'll tell you the truth. You think it's like your reputation only, but then it also will start to affect you further down the line in terms of, will you actually be able to actually execute that full application or not? You know. So the first thing that Danvika said is actually right. Like, you should be able to know the requirements, and then once you know the requirements, you can tell yourself, you know very well, if you're not.
I don't know. We lost Frank somewhere. We seem to have lost Frank. Am I the only one who is not hearing Frank?
Oh yeah, no, I'm back. Sorry. It was just
okay. So
small network.
I'll pick it up again. That you were saying that we don't take jobs if you can't be able to deliver.
Yes. Don't take jobs if you can't be able to deliver. And like, it's very important, because it's not only going to affect the way you're doing the work, it's going to affect you even further down the line. In that, when you're taking up a job and you've never built something like that before, it starts to create a lot of issues. I mean, it's different if someone has put you on the job, but it's different totally when you go and pitch for a job, then you want to do it, or you give a pricing that you're going to do it for X amount of money. And then I think once you say you're going to do it for X amount of money, the problem is always, are you able to deliver? So for me, it's like, look at yourself and ask yourself, do I have the capacity to go end to end with the project from the start to the finish line with it? It's easy to throw figures around, but then can you actually do it? You know, that's the other thing that is very important. If you can't do it, don't bother doing it. And also I think it's also important for us also to say in the development space, it's good to avoid this mentality of being a broker. Because that being a broker thing, I've seen it has affected so many devs, both positively and negatively mostly. I've seen that's what I've seen, like mostly negatively. Someone takes a job, comes and says, yeah, I can do it, and then get some other people to do it. Then now your reputation is on the line when these guys go missing. Now you can't implement.
Okay. So Danvika said, understand the scope of the project, and what I'm getting from Frank is, before you even quote, ask yourself, are you able to deliver in terms of development of the project? And I want now to go to Alista. Alista works remotely for a US company from Zimbabwe. Alista, how do you usually go about pricing for the projects? Do you have an hourly rate, or do you price the projects on an ongoing basis?
Okay, so I use what is known as value-based pricing. I don't have an hourly rate. The reason why I don't have an hourly rate is in the end, you end up losing in the long run. For example, let's say that you are just starting out in your development career and you're still trying to figure things out. You're not really sure how to add certain features. So naturally, that will take more time for you to build that out, which is okay if you're getting paid hourly because you get paid more money. However, as you get better, you'll be able to build those features faster. Maybe you've got projects and you can just copy and paste code in, and the amount of time it would have taken you to build out that feature, you'd have reduced the amount of time. So now once you've reduced the amount of time, then it means you get paid less. So to me, it doesn't really make sense that as you get better, you get paid less. It should be the other way around. So that's why I don't like hourly pricing. Instead, I look at the value that I bring to the client. So yeah, that's the model that I use.
Thank you, Alista, for that. He's bringing up something interesting called value-based pricing. And this is especially, I think, is significant for freelancers and especially guys who usually work remote, because there are usually a number of models, and the major two are usually either you are paid per hour or you scope the own projects and give a figure. And that is one of the discussions for today, because even if you are doing hourly discussions, how do you price your hours of development? And then also, how do you even say that this project is going to take this many hours? I think that is and that will be an interesting discussion. Harun, what is your take? What are the initial things that you are supposed to do just before you even start pricing the project?
So I think at Apps Lab, we are like a software consultancy company where we get to like work for other people or maybe clients mostly. So we deal with like pricing software a lot. And as maybe what Danvik was saying, our first thing to look at is one is the scope of the project. By that, I mean like what is like the project doing from start to end. And then after the scope, that's when you are able to like analyze how much you charge for this. And then we also have like other things that will maybe be dependent. That is like the budget you're on, because at times, maybe as a developer, I feel like in case let's say your monthly budget is, let's say 40K per month, and you're doing projects below that, maybe that is maybe something like I kind of look into. So, but it depends from person to person. But
Yeah.
for me, budget will be also something I'll figure it. I'll try to key in. Maybe I'm doing this project for 3 months. This is what I'll require for these 3 months.
Yeah.
Is the like project enough to cater for that? So I'll also key in that. And also maybe one thing I'll like maybe to echo is we have like a lot of prices and a lot of people saying that this is how much you should charge for this kind of software. But
Yeah.
the best thing is have your own rate. Don't follow like someone what maybe if you in this talk you hear I'm charging maybe a mobile application for like let's say 500,000, and you go when someone asks you, you charge that amount. And as Frank
Yeah.
said, if you cannot deliver, that will be like you are like the place you cut like the connection with that client or the person you're doing it for.
Yeah.
So you have to know like if I'm charging for this amount, if it's your first time, charge as per your rate, and maybe just use what we are saying in here to just give you insights to charge. But don't like say like this person said this application should cost this much, because I've seen it costing a lot of people. Because once you say every figure has like, you have to account like for every figure. So let's say, especially with maybe big, like large sum amounts of money, you'll be told to break down like how this cost, how you have arrived to this cost. So, and if you don't really know, you'll have to like do some kind of fishy figures. So that is maybe an overview.
Thanks. I think one thing that is coming out clear from Harun is budget, as in once you've established the scope, also try and find out what is the client budget. So going down into the meat of the day, how then do you price once you've understood the scope of the project, that is the system requirements or the app requirements or the web app requirements? Also, once you've understood that and you are pretty sure that you are able to actually deliver the project, also once you've known the budget, even in case you ever get to know the budget of the project, because most clients will always try and hide the budget because they are also trying to cut on budget costs. So how do you take it from there? That once you are sure I'm able to deliver, I've gotten the complete scope that the client wants, what next? So how do you now come down to pricing the project?
David.
Yes, Eric.
Before you continue, I see Patrick Cheriot has raised hand. Maybe you can hear him before we proceed.
Okay, Patrick, then Clinton.
Hello, David.
Yes, Patrick, karibu.
I'm good. You?
Well.
I would like to know
yes.
before starting a project,
yes.
specifically to settle on a technology to use between React and Flutter, and which one to probably go to?
React Native and Flutter.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, Patrick. Allow me to hold on your question.
Yeah, sure.
Then I'll bring up your question towards the end, because one thing I'm assuming, apart from this platform being a Flutter developers platform, we also have developers from different like platforms or stacks. So I will answer. We will answer your question at the end once we've done. We've answered the question of the day: how to price the project. I hope that is okay.
Yeah, that's okay with me.
Clinton. I can see your hand is up. Okay, I think we can go ahead. So back to my question, and my question was, we've understood the client scope. We've understood, or maybe we've been lucky to have known the client's budget. And also we've understood that we're able to deliver the project. How do we boil down now to pricing the project? I think from personal experience, because this has no fixed answer, by the way, that needs to be actually said. There's no fixed answer for this. You just have to look for what works for you. So from your experience as Danvik, Harun, Alista, and Frank, how do you usually go down to pricing a project? Danvik, you can start us off.
So I really like Alistair's way of thinking about value. There was someone who was being asked, like, if you are a designer and you're designing an app for Nike, or you're designing an app for basically a local client, how would you price it? You see, for Nike, if you're developing a logo for them or something like that, if you're a designer, it's worth more to them, so you should charge them more. But that really needs your understanding of the client. And you know, most clients, especially here in Kenya, they wouldn't want to like put all the cards on the table. So for you to get the value they get out of that project, it's usually like most Kenyans I see, they try to downplay the value of the project. It's just just a small app, I want to do ABCD. It's not, like, getting the value becomes hard. I've been able to charge clients based on the value that they get out of the project. But also, my fallback plan is usually an hourly rate, where I can be able to, like, say, if it doesn't go, maybe if the client doesn't meet, if I can't get the value that the client will get out of this project, at least I have a value that I can charge for this specific project. Also, I think after understanding the value, I think one of the things that Frank mentioned about brokering, there's a thing, you can not be really a broker, but you may need a team. So you also need to understand their capabilities and what they can be able to do before you start the project. That is something that we may have failed to, especially if you're a consultant, like a single consultant, not a company. Or you may have a company, but still you need like resources from outside to be able to deliver on the project. You need to understand like whether they can be able to deliver and what is also their rate. That is something that maybe most people forget to include. You just give a bundle figure and then you start to work out the compensation between the team like after. That is not the best way to work on that. So I digress a bit, but I think an hourly rate for me always works because I know what to do. Now, the hourly rate for me depends on which technologies I'm using. I think your question may come in earlier than you thought, because in most cases, you may have to consult for your client and tell them this is the match, this is the way to go. Maybe they're thinking of developing a mobile app, and you can tell them, by the way, for these specific requirements, I think you may be better off starting with a web app or something like that. So for me, the hourly rate also depends on which technology I'm using. If I'm using PHP, which I've done like for so many years, and it's basically one of the easiest ones out there, and I can deliver very fast, I can be able to like charge less than, let's say the effort that I put in, it always differs. So that's one way of protecting yourself from just giving a blanket figure that you don't understand. Also, before you go to the client, you need to understand that value you're giving, because if you can't wait for the client to tell you to break it down. You have to break it down in your head even before you give them a value. I think that is so much input that I can give right now. Maybe we'll see how the discussion goes, but that is how I would do for my project.
Okay. Harun?
Yeah, so I'll maybe add to what Danvik is saying. We have like a couple of factors we usually look, maybe because at the place I work, like everyone is involved like in this pricing, so that every team member can know like how to generally go about pricing.
Yeah.
So the first thing we usually do is gather all the requirements. So mostly in case the client has like a software requirement documents we require them to send, or in case they don't have, we draft one so that to make sure like we don't have cases where maybe the person is telling you develop for me like a Facebook like application. That is very general and it can be interpreted in any terms in case you don't deliver, or in case like you feel like I won't have reached my end. So that is like the first thing. Just get all the requirements, and with these requirements, it like enables you to know like what exactly should I price. Another thing is like the time for the duration for the project. So you'll find like a lot of people wanting to tell, I want this maybe application in 2 months, 1 month, etc. So our general rule of thumb, in case you want it quicker, you have to like to just pay a bit higher, since like we have to remove a couple of guys from other projects and just let them dedicate on this project, and also some other guys have to work on maybe work time and all that. So the time also is a key factor. So yeah, the shorter the timelines, the higher the price, just to make sure like you cater for your team members also. You don't want to overwork people and then you just also underpay. You also have like to get those dynamics. And then the type of applications. So we have the type of application. It can be a simple website, or maybe a simple, maybe single screen application, or maybe it can be like an application like Uber. Let's say like, for example, like an Uber-like application, it requires like a dashboard, a backend. We also require like mobile apps, maybe 2 of them. So you can't like charge the same price as a single screen application. You have to like declare those prices. So once you get like, and this maybe the type of application, we go back to the requirements. So once you have the requirements, you'll be able to tell like the client, this is the kind of application you need. You need like, because most of them at times do not know what they require. So you have to like educate them. You'll need a dashboard. You'll also need like 2 applications. You also need like an API to communicate between like the database, the dashboard, the backend, and also the applications. And also in case like for maybe general customers, they need like a landing website. So you see like those are, we have a dashboard, we have a API, 2 applications, and a landing page. So in case you didn't like gather your applications, your requirements very well, you'll miss like these details, and you'll be knowing them like at the very late stage of the project. So that also determines, because you cannot, those 5 things, you cannot price the same way. So you have to like know like how much do I price each of these them. So this
I think Harun has hand.
You can't hear me?
No, I can hear you.
Okay.
No, you can be heard, Harun. I think it's your network.
I don't know if we've lost Aaron. Then Frank can take over.
No, Harun is still there, David. Like I can hear him.
So who else cannot hear me?
I can hear you from my end.
Okay.
David, are you there? Okay, you can continue. Harun, please continue. I think David's network is having an issue.
Yeah, so also those applications and maybe the type of the ones that you need to develop also determine
Yes.
like the price.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, sure, you can.
Hello.
Yes.
Hello,
so
David.
maybe let me just proceed and wrap up. Maybe. Yeah.
Okay,
So those type of applications, and then we have like the tech stacks also comes in, also like factories in. This is how like it factors in. So for example, you need to develop like a real-time kind of a thing. So in case you are starting from scratch, obviously the price will be a bit higher, because you have to like dedicate people to develop a certain kind of a stack. But in case you are opting to like acquire from a third party, in case you don't want to do that, you just want to rely maybe let's say on Firebase. So those are some kind of a cost you also should factor in. And best practice is just in case it also goes, for me, like requirements gathering will be like the key thing, because once you like get those requirements, you also need like third-party services which the clients need to pay. For maybe for us, what we do, some services that are required for that project, it's not for us to pay, it's for the client to pay. In case we have a domain to be bought, in case we have like a server to be purchased, it's not like a cost me as a developer or we as a company have to cater for. And you have to like include that in the contract so that they cannot tell you, you said you give us a domain, where is it? And lastly, we have like a kind of minimum charge for each and every type of applications, because we have ERPs, we have like mobile applications, we have static websites. So it's just, you can just have like an off the kind of figure. Let's say maybe for a website you say, or maybe like, let's say as an individual, you'll not be doing like work below 10,000. So once you do that, every application you know, or any work you get, it will be 10,000 and above. Why this 10,000? I'll also base it to the budget. If you know, like in a month you use like 10,000, yes, so just factor in and say like, I will not be doing projects less than 10,000. I think it also helps a lot to also filter some kind of clients who have like a couple of red flags, because someone can tell you, I want a website at 20,000, and you say, they can describe it as a very simple website, but at the time you're finishing it, it is a website that has payment, e-commerce, M-Pesa, and all that. So I think it's also good to just have some kind of base rates according to your own understanding.
Thanks, Harun. Alistair talked about, you talked about value-based pricing. What is it that, if you can dive deep into, what do you mean by this value? When you look at a project, what are the criteria that you use for valuing a project, and how do you then attach a price to the value of the project? Because we've seen Harun has talked about that for his projects, one, he look at the scope, and then also there, if it's a web project, if it's a static website, if it's a mobile app, he plays around with the pricing using that. And then also he has his monthly budget, that if a project costs this amount, he'll not be able to do it. But he has a cap that for any project that is less than this amount, we are not like taking it as a company. So for you, Alistair, how do you price your value on a given project? What are the parameters that you use?
Okay, yeah, sure. That's a good question. Danvik and Harun mentioned a lot of good points, some of which I also use for myself as well in the pricing. When it comes to the value part now, this is where it gets interesting. Obviously, we would have discussed with the client why exactly they want a certain product to be made. So based on the answers that they give you, you'll be able to ascertain what the value you provide. So I'll give an example. Let us say a supermarket approaches you and they want you to make an e-commerce application for them. All right, so the reason why they want an e-commerce application is because of the current pandemic. They want to create a way of having home deliveries to deliver groceries to people at home so that they don't have to worry about going to the shops, etc. So, all right, you speak to them and everything, and then now a question that you can ask them is, from this project, what are you hoping to get out of it? How do we know that this project will be a success? How much would you be hoping to make back from this? So since it's a supermarket, they'll say, okay, fine, with our grocery store, we sell maybe $5,000 worth of goods every month, all right? So then you'll say, okay, so if that's 5,000, if we add an e-commerce app, it means that you'll be able to sell more than 5,000. Maybe in a month with the e-commerce app, you can sell maybe 7,000 or 8,000 in a month. Then they say, okay, yeah, no, that sounds good. If we can increase that a bit or even make it more, that's fine. All right, so you've agreed on that. So now when you're pricing, since you are helping them to say that you can give them an additional $3,000, if you say to them, okay, look, if we make this app for $2,000, does that sound like a deal for you? And then they'll think to themselves, okay, all right, so if he's charging us 2,000, we get to make an extra 3,000, so we're still making a profit. So over time, we'll make more money as we go along. So they are
Mhm.
seeing that you are bringing them value, and in turn you are going to get paid a decent amount because you know that they are getting a better deal out of the situation. So
Yeah.
it's a win-win in that regard. So that's how you can approach it. You can try and help them to understand that, look, you're not just giving them a random figure, you're helping them to see that what you're helping them to do is to actually increase their profits, and when they see that you're able to negotiate with them.
Okay. Thanks. An interesting way. And I also think Danvik had explained about that ask the client, what value is this project to you? How can, as in how much would you price it in terms of the value that is bringing you, the revenues that it is bringing you, and then use that figure to do your quotation. I think that's an interesting way to also look at it. And there's something I like that Harun pointed out, that we should also be careful that we separate third-party costs like server costs, domain costs, SMS cost, USSD cost from your labor cost. That it should not be, that if they are on the same budget, they should be clearly stated and tell the client, this is what you will be paying, either one-off payments or recurrent payments. And this is also what you'll be paying me in terms of the labor to just develop this platform. Frank, you've been working as a, do I call it a freelancer for a while? And here I'm getting, we have two kinds of people, and you'll correct me if I'm wrong. I'm understanding that Arun and Danvik seem to be working directly with the clients that they're dealing with. And we have Alista and Frank are working as freelancers, so meaning they don't interact directly with the client. It's like they're under a company. So we are getting here two interesting perspectives in terms of, I work as a freelancer. This is how I charge the company that I'm working under in terms of how they pay me for a given project. And then we have individuals who work for their own companies, or they work as consultant freelancers where they deal directly with the client, and they also have their own way of charging. I think that is one thing that is coming out. So Frank, how do you go about it in terms of now pricing the projects that you've been given by the company that you're working for?
So in terms of pricing, what happens in a dev shop, especially for us, I work for Snap Mobile. I mean, we build financial solutions, so like financial solutions and entertainment solutions for like, I feel like the largest brands probably in the world or something like that. And so most of the products you deal with are usually the ones that will be dealt with at scale. So you're talking about over 100,000 people who are probably going to be using it, or 50,000 people who are going to be using it per time. And then you see, one of the things I've learned is that for me, I guess the pricing was, you have your own personal rate, and how I think you can come up with your personal rate is really like straightforward. Either if you've ever been employed, it's a very nice benchmark to start from. So let's say you are previously employed, you are paid 120,000 gross, live net gross. And so if you do 120,000, you're working for 20 days. You never work for 30 days. Don't lie to yourself. It's 20 days, Monday to Friday. You're probably doing like what, 120 divided by 20 days is 60. 60. 120,000 by 20 days is like 60,000. So you're probably, 6,000. So you're probably making like what, 6,000 every single day. So times 20, you make 120,000. So you're probably looking at a daily rate of 6,000 shillings. Divide that by 8, you have your hourly rate. You work for 8 hours. Now, one of the things that you quickly start learning if you want to get into this whole freelancing thing or like anything is, one, you need to have like a very distinct work-life balance. I think I learned that even as I joined the company. Very distinct work-life balance in that there's something that is called, it's like a principle of honesty. So because you're remote, if you say you're billing the company 8 hours, I mean, this is again up to you. But for me, I try as much as, not even try, it is I have to be as honest as possible. Yes, I will bill the 8 hours, but then sometimes I work for more than that. Do I tell them? No, I don't tell them. Just billing that hours that I'm billing it. How I came up with that figure that I was asked and I presented, and it was like a very small negotiation, and then we came up with a final figure was, I had a previous base rate, I know the industry rate, and I was like, okay, fine, cool. This is probably not Microsoft or Google or anything like that. But I guess for me, the problem, I think with the company that I'm doing stuff with right now is I love the team. So I'm probably biased. I really love the team. That's like a different thing altogether. But then like generally I've seen like there's sometimes just before this, I was working. So I've done all this like consultancy, like the UN and stuff. It was really straightforward for those ones. It's like I had a base figure. I was like, okay, previously, this is the amount of money I've previously done some work with, if it's Microsoft, with Google, if it's, you know, all those top companies. You know, like a base rate, you know, like this is the industry standard for someone who has this level of my capability. And also, so also the other thing that is very important to also learn is when I'm telling them, when you say that you're going to take 8 hours to do some work, is I'm saying 8 hours because I've actually probably have that experience of saying, I know it's going to take me like 4 hours, but the 8 hours are going to help me out in terms of like if there's a delay, there's like a network issue and things like that. I just like doubling that time so that it takes a longer time. There's some things I'll need to learn along the way. The programming language can change. So then I think for me, how a really very easy way of coming up with that figure. I can't tell someone like, if you have 8 years of experience, it's not, you should base it. And then again, also it's important for you to understand that if you can't base your rate based on someone like me or someone like Harun or someone like Danvik. Like there's no figure that, let's say David, like I can't tell you like charge 8 million, you know, because you see the problem is once we get into down that rabbit hole is, oh yeah, wait, Frank is doing the same project for $50,000. Danvik is doing the same project for $80,000. Harun is doing the same project for $100,000. You see, it's different. It depends on, according to me, I feel like that's my rate. That's what I can actually accomplish. So that daily figure for me, it's like, I've really come to love that daily sort of figure-ish, and I'm really aware. So like, for instance, if I'm to leave this company and go and work for another company, the minimum amount I'm going to negotiate with is definitely this one that I was being paid for here. So then if someone can't meet that, I'm not like so I mean like oh, that minimum, but like if someone can't meet that, I am okay with not doing anything for them. So I have those base rates where it's like it has to be an improvement, because even you as a developer over time, you are actually improving. So if you're making 120 and legit, if you look at yourself, you have improved, it's actually good for you to say, okay, cool, I think I have improved. And it's really like a very interesting value system. So my monthly rate, I arrive it at also thinking about, it's a very simple formula of business. Profit is equal to cost. Sorry, the amount of money you're going to charge, that is price, is equal to a cost plus a markup or a profit. So for me, it's like, what's the cost that I'm going to run into? Yeah, plus expenses. What are the costs I'm going to run into in delivering your project? I have my Wi-Fi, I have my rent, I have my this. If my rent is going to be X amount of money and I'm telling them I'm going to take 2 months to do this project, obviously that's what I'm going to pay them. So that's normally what I'll charge with teams that want to bring me in as being part of the dev team to do stuff.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Thanks, Frank. Interesting way of how you do it. And as I started the discussion, I actually think I put a disclaimer and said one thing we should all take away as we go away today is that there is no work. There's no formula that will work for all of us the same. That pricing is a interesting thing, and you price it according to what you think works for you. That's why different people will quote differently for the same website. And I like also how Frank talks about that. For him, when he changes employers or yearly, he gets to upgrade his prices. And I like this because I also learned that from, I think it was Nonini. He was talking about how he prices himself. Nonini, the musician. And one thing that I learned from him is that he said that for every gig I go, I usually add a minimum figure, that if the last gig I took 30K, he said that the next gig he's going to take and perform is going to take more than 30, that it never comes below that. And that's how he kept raising his markup. He had a figure that he says, as long as I've been called for a gig to perform, it doesn't matter where it is, I keep adding a constant figure on top of it. So with time, it means one, you're becoming better by performing, and also your brand is also growing. So you keep adding your markup as you keep going. And I think that is something important for us, that as you keep building your skills, keep adding your markup, because you're getting more knowledge and more experience. So I also want to open up questions to the rest of the members. Kindly send in your questions on the chat, and then I can be able to ask the panelists. But as we wait for your questions, let me bring in a legal aspect. I want to bring in Victor to be able to assist us from the legal angle on how do we go about it in regards to now you've gotten the price for the given project. you've agreed with the client that this is the cost I'm going to charge you, and the client has said yes. What next from there from a legal perspective? Yeah. So I think let me open up for Victor to start us off, that we've agreed with the client that this is how much I'm going to charge you. So what next do I do from a legal perspective, Victor? Karibu, Victor. You can unmute your mic.
Hi.
Hi, Victor.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think I would want to piggyback that with the first question. I saw Clinton had posted somewhere on the chat about what do you do about pricing when the client keeps extending like the goalpost. Just to start that, when you get a project or an instruction on what you're supposed to do, it's very important to agree with the client from the start what is expected of you and what is expected of them, in the sense that what do they want you to deliver and what do you expect from them as a what in law is called consideration, but loosely payment, so that cases of where someone keeps increasing or shifting the goalpost over and over do not agree. I want to also strongly suggest that most of your agreements should be in writing, in the sense that you set parameters together jointly. Whoever goes against it then becomes a violator of the agreement or the contract, so it becomes breach. But remember, it is important, as I think it was either Danvik or Mabiria who mentioned something about setting a checklist on whatever is actually required. That actually goes a long way to determining whether or not you've met your side of the bargain and they've also met their side of the bargain. Now, once that part has been agreed upon, the part of the pricing is actually your pre-sale. As David has put it, on increasing your markup from time to time, it's really about you. It's you who knows the value, the cost, and whatever you are delivering. So it's really up to you to decide how much you want to be remunerated or compensated for delivering that particular. So that also should be reduced into writing. And then at the end of it all, be very cautious not to leave it open-ended, in the sense that in the event you fail to deliver on your part, you are liable. In the event they fail to deliver on their part, now that is a client, they are liable. So it is sort of a two-way traffic to enable the balance and just to balance the business relationship vis-a-vis the productivity that is expected of you as a service provider. Now that is one side of the one-off kind of projects or instructions that you get from time. There's the other kind of setup whereby you have a retainer, like a monthly kind of arrangement whereby you are paid a certain figure for doing certain activities, be it maintenance, be it updates, be it, all manner of things, or regular checks and all that kind of stuff. Then you must also come to reduce it into writing, such that they are able to quantify it into something that they are saying, we expect you in the next 30 days. I like what a certain gentleman said, that you actually work for 20 days. But for purposes of loosely referring to a month, let us look at it from 30 days. What is expected of you to carry out or to effect within 30 days from 1st, 30th or 31st of a certain month, that you now expect to be remunerated at the end of it. If that clarity is not there, then it creates room for a lot of mischief from either the client who was to pay you, they start shifting goalposts, or two, they start saying, we expected what you delivered. So if that clarity is not there from the word go, from the beginning, then it exposes you as the programmer or the developer to a lot of risk and anxiety.
Okay. Thanks, Victor. So Victor, when we are doing this contract, what are the minimum requirements that a written contract needs to have? That we've agreed that one, we need to have it written down. Either we do an email, but I think you'll advise here, I don't know if the best is just having a written down contract which is on paper, signed and stamped. What are what are the minimum requirements that will have a contract legally binding, and what are the what you guys would call in law ile vipengele. Let me put it like that in Swahili. You let me translate in English. Those sections that need to be in that contract to make it secure for you and also fair on the client side.
Okay. Now, going into a lot of legal jargon, I want to encourage, as I've said, generate a checklist while you are engaging or negotiating for this particular instruction or project with the client, so that whatever they expect from you and whatever you are expected to deliver is one and the same thing. You're on the same page completely. 2, what are the terms of engagement? Is it a retainer basis or is it on the basis of a project? Because I'm sure some of you have developed projects or apps, softwares, whatever kind of commodity or project or product that you've delivered. Some of it is not a one-off, may require a long-term sustenance in terms of maintenance, in terms of regular updates, in terms of maintenance, when there's downtime, in terms of checking and all those kind of dynamics that come in. These things have to be agreed on from the word go. But I want to suggest that if it is a long-term kind of suggestion or proposal, then you need to look at how sustainable is it over the long term, so that your pricing is not again too exorbitant to scare away the client, but it is sustainable for you to carry out the role and for them to maintain you on the payroll.
Yeah.
In the sense that you don't necessarily be an employee, but you may be a contractor for service. For instance, I think I had a couple of gentlemen referring to Uber. Uber, if you were to develop a similar app, it is not a one-off thing, because fine, it will go up and live, but maintenance and regular use of it will require your input as the brainchild or whoever has got the background code and whoever has access to the back office of it. So you need to be able to appreciate that when you're doing your pricing, you actually looking for value, not just for having the app up and running and live and can be accessible by all the clients or whoever the users, but for future kind of engagement that you've been called upon, there's a bug on it, it's been hacked, there's ABCD, payments are not going through ABCD. All those kind of things have to be envisioned from the start.
Yeah.
Now, I've talked about the requirements, I've talked about the payment. Now, the third thing is, it is important that you all agree on what we usually call disputes. Do you want disputes, in the event of a dispute, that it directly goes to a litigious process, which is court, or do you want it to, at some point, go into mediation or arbitration? That is because the three options have got financial implications, depending on how much and what is at stake. Mediation is often the cheapest option. Arbitration is cost shared between either party. It may or may not be expensive depending on which mediator you settle on. The litigious process is definitely capped with one, legal fees from the legal representative, and court fees, which is basically government revenue that is generated and it's prescribed. So I've talked about one, agreeing on the product that you're actually doing, reduced into the document, into the agreement. 2, the pricing module. It must then be reduced into that document. 3, I'm referring to on the parameters and the scope of the project. Is it long-term? Is it short-term? Yes.
Thanks, Victor. I think we've gotten a scope of what we are needed to do legally. So I want to open up for questions, both legal question and both pricing questions. And thanks, I can see, I think Victor has answered one of the questions that was asked earlier about a client who keeps adding more modules. And I think Victor has clearly said that ensure you have a clause in your contract that talks about it, that if you keep adding more modules, either you you price it differently, or it's not even part of the project. It has to be priced totally different. It has to be like a new contract or something. So that has to be factored in like that. Or yes, Victor.
Just what you've mentioned, I think it's important. I also just mentioned that every contract can have an addendum. You see, the client would increase the module depending on their user needs.
Yes.
It may occur that they initially contemplated a situation X, but because of the nature of their clients and because of the nature of maybe the product that they want to utilize, they need to increase that. There is absolutely no problem on doing an addendum to the initial contract.
Yeah.
But be very cautious not to be overused while underpaid. That's what I'm really trying to say.
Yeah. So I think Victor has brought out an interesting aspect. Is calling it an addendum, that an addition to the contract. Yes. So I think when you guys have this kind of issues, you can see him as a lawyer, and he'll assist you. Yeah, and he's a friendly guy, so don't fear legal fees. Just talk to him, and you'll work out something. That you can even put the legal fees inside the contract. Who knows? He'll tell you that. Yeah. So I'm just marketing him. Don't worry, guys. So to Byron's question, Byron is asking, give us a sample breakdown on things that we can include for a client. If, let's say, I've quoted $500,000 Kenya shillings as the price of a project, how can I break it down? And I think you've been answered by Alista. Alista sent a link that can show you how you can break down the budget. But I also think the other thing, it takes you back to your requirements. I think if you can group your requirements as modules and then price them, depending on the value that you put either on your time or on the given project, it will help you to price the modules differently. So I think that is something. But after Byron, you've looked at that document, you can give us a feedback. I want to take the next question by Safu. Safu is saying, I have so many projects at hand and I have no experience in budgeting. The website, I have an e-commerce website, and there's a client who wants a similar web. I'm not sure how I'm going to charge the client. I want to assume that this question we've answered from the different discussions we've been having. But if one of the panelists has something to add, or any member has something to add, they can raise their hand so that they can help answer this. Anyone would want to go?
I'd like to. So I don't like the word like I want an app like this, because that ties you to something that you don't really understand the requirements that are in that app. Sure. I want you to specify from Uber. I want like I want this feature A, B, C, D, so that we can can break it down and understand exactly what the client needs. That is how you would come up with your budget of the project. Because for me, working we're working on an hourly rate, like my time budgeting is translates to my cost, basically to the cost budgeting, because you will ask yourself, I need to you break down to the least point of measure, so that you can be able to say this thing. Like, let me take an example. Developing a login sign up will take me this number of hours, for example. So I will charge for this. It will take me 3 hours. Now I'm charging like $25. Now that will cost this much. See, if you break it down and everything is taken, it's very easy to come up with a value. But if someone tells you, I want an app like Uber, and then you agree to it, and then at the end of it, you build an app, you get to a point where like they're asking you for more things because you just agreed to something like Uber. You don't know exactly how Uber does. Like, okay, maybe you may understand or maybe not, but you get to a point where like you are in limbo because you don't know where does it stop now? Where does the project end? Because that's very, 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 very important to understand. Where does this end? And as Victor mentioned, I think I've had clients which have had to do an addendum to the contracts, where maybe like, especially for clients who are starting something like a startup, where they want to that there's a new idea they're coming up with, not like a business or anything, but a new idea they are trying to come up with. I think those are very, when it comes to value-based quoting, those are the hardest because they don't have a given, they can only give you projections of what much value they would get. But for these are the ones that you need to actually break down totally for you to know where we are going, and we are able to and those are the ones that will mostly have changes within the project, because they may not have thought out the project very well. But if it's a company that does like business X, probably they figured out how the business works. So there's less chance of them having to break down. Another thing also Frank mentioned, in terms of like when you always remember that I've done 100, like one project for 100, it's in the store. Yeah. The next project, you can't charge the same, even if it's an hourly rate, whether like whichever aspect you're using, especially if it's not value-based. If you're doing like maybe an hourly rate, or basically you have your own rates, whichever rates you're using, maybe it's daily, maybe it's hourly. Remember to always like increase the value, because from project A to B, that is experience you've gained. That's why Alistair said that you can't with experience you take less time to develop. So you should also your value should also be increasing, so that for that 1 hour you don't just get that $25 and then you become a better programmer by getting experience, and then it takes you now 30 minutes instead of 1 hour, then you get like 12.5. Doesn't make sense. You have to go up. Your hourly rate or whichever rate you're using has to go up as you get experience, so that you don't get to a point where you are losing value.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks, Danvik.
Question somewhere in there.
Yeah. Pardon?
I know I was asked a question, but I digressed a bit, but I'm sure I have answered the question somewhere in there.
Yeah, actually, I believe you've answered. And guys, I can see Harun and Alistair are sharing links on samples on how to price your project, how to break it down budget-wise. So kindly have a look at those links on the chat to assist you. I also want to add something else from my personal experience is when you're pricing projects, and especially if you're dealing directly with a client, one, understand your client very well. There are clients that you know they cannot be able to pay you for the cost of your project. So sometimes you might have to do what I will call like volunteer kind of work. To one, either you might need to change your, let me actually rephrase this, you might need to change your model of pricing, that you can enter into a partnership with them, that you become the technology builder if you're able to assess the business value. That is one model I use, that I've been into building a lot of startups, and most of the time I find that most of the startups cannot be able to pay the value that I'm able to put on the table. And so after analyzing their business, what I usually do is I would propose to them, look, this is what I would charge you for this project. But even looking at your budget, this could be your whole budget. Why don't we enter into an agreement? I build the platform and we share revenues, or I get a stake in the company. So that is a model that you can choose to look at, and especially if you are dealing with SMEs, that most of them don't actually have, maybe if you're a well-experienced developer, they may not have that amount. And also you can only do that if you have other sources of income. So that is something you have to really balance and look at. Secondly, as I think Frank and Danvik and others have been saying, you need to look at the client. How big is the client? I think, and I think this is what most of us have been using for pricing. That if you see a client is big, you put a big price. If you see a client is small, you put a small price. Sometimes it can work for or against you. You need to be careful when you're using only that kind of model. I use that, but then what I usually add is I have my base rates. That this is what I can take for a project. That I will have my base rate, and then I look at how big the client is, because I have gone to pitching, and the client will look at the amount you've pitched. And if the amount is small, they'll throw you out immediately because they have the perception that you are not able to deliver because you are cheap. Yes, Danvik, just add something on that.
Don't look at don't look at the size of the company. Look at the value that you're giving to that company.
Yeah.
For a big company, there's chances that the value for them will be bigger. Not that the company is big, that's why you're charging big. Basically, it's about the value you're providing to them. That's what you charge. Not try as much as it's Safaricom, try to see the value that they will get out of your project. Don't look at how big the company is, because Safaricom is worth like several, I don't know if it's billions or millions, but
billions. Yeah.
So, don't look at the value of the company, look at the value that you're going to provide for that company. That doesn't go wrong very, very often.
Sure. And I think you've already answered Bave's question. And Eric Muli has also just said, my friend was thrown out because of charging cheap. So know the value that you are adding to that company to determine also, help you also determine the costing for that project. Any other questions? As we're also coming to the end, we have about 8 minutes to go. Or any addition, if there's any member of the community who has anything to add, maybe something has been left out. And Patrick, I've not forgotten your question. I will bring it up. Anyone from the community who has anything to add, you can raise your hand and I'll be able to point you out to a chance to something on pricing. Or if maybe you have a different model that you use for pricing and you'd like to share. It's all about community building each other. Anyone?
Also like on maybe small, medium businesses.
Yes, Aaron.
It's something we realized maybe they cannot be able to pay like the whole amount of the software. So what you can do is just introduce like subscription kind of a model where they pay like, let's say 1,000 per month for your product, or maybe whatever price you can settle on, because we've seen like not many businesses can afford like the actual cost of software, mostly the small ones, and we have been having like that kind of a challenge. So what we do is like planning to introduce like subscription where like this is the value of the product, and if they pay a subscription for this amount of time, it will be able to like roughly cater for that. So that also helps in diversifying like income. Maybe, and this is maybe something I would like maybe to point out, since we are discussing about maybe the money and all thing. I think it's something important, both as a freelancer or maybe as a consultant. Please, let's have like diversify your income as much as possible, because this period between March and now has maybe taught me personally to just have like various avenues where you can have your income. You don't know, maybe you can lack clients, or maybe you can lack your employment. So, but once you diversify, it will be just good enough. And also plan and budget well. That also comes very good with maybe pricing and all that.
Yeah.
I also have, when we start agreeing with a client, like you have like revenue share, or basically you enter into an agreement where you provide the technology and they provide the business or the administration cost. Be very keen about those, because especially for small business starting up, basically where you two are coming up with a novel idea, very gets people into traps. Me, I've personally got into such kind of traps where like these clients say I can be able to deliver, like in terms of administration, because I will run it. Then they tell you to start big, like you are the one to build the project to the end for them to now take over and run it. That is not effective for you, and it will end up costing you. Make sure you understand, even when you are deciding on, let's take an example of Uber. Someone says, I will run the business as much as the app is there to start using. That will mean that you'll have to develop the app for the app to be there so that it can be used.
Yeah.
That gets to a point where maybe it's an idea that was not well thought out either by them or both of you. And then it comes to a point where like you have developed and delivered, and then the business does not work out. How do you recoup that cost? I think the best way for me, and the way I usually work with my clients, is if you want us to do a revenue share, let's first of all share the cost of developing this software. If the software is needed before the start of the business begins, so that we kind of come up with the value of the software before we start, so that we know how much I've brought in. And if at that point of development, because it may take you like 6 months to develop a whole system before start using, like how will you be running your costs before that 6 months? And so it would be better for you to maybe come to an agreement with them so that it becomes, you share the cost of development. Let's say they bring in half of the value of the system, so that at that point they are also invested. Instead of waiting for you to invest all your capital developing the system, then it doesn't work out. Then you end up being the one in problem because they have not incurred any cost at that point. So be very keen about those. I'd advise you to share the cost of development first, if that is needed beforehand, so that you are sharing the whole like profit and loss. Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Danvik, for just pointing that out. I also see Ramazi saying that before sending a proposal, kindly qualify your client by stating your price to avoid wasting time. This will ideally come from information gathering, as we were explained to by Harun. And then there's something else I learned from Craft Silicon, is charging for consultancy. You see that process of the project requirements gathering. I learned that you need to put a price to it. That you tell the client, okay, it's good, you want me to do you this project, and especially if these are clients who've been referred to you by previous clients, so that they already believe in you being able to deliver. I will advise all of us to have a figure, like the last time I talked to Craft Silicon, I think they were charging 200 Gs or something, and that is almost like 5 years ago. And this is a meeting whereby you just go and sit down and explain, I have this problem, I want a solution for this. And they sit down and tell you, okay, fine. What do you want? What are the requirements you want for your system? And they advise you, okay, for you, we are going to build you a mobile app vis-a-vis a web app because of ABCD. And for that meeting, before you even start that meeting, you have to put down a payment of 200,000. Because one, you've taken up their time, they've given you a solution already, which means you can walk out of there, go to another client, go to another developer and tell him, I want you to do A, B, C, D with the requirements that they've actually collected from you. So as you keep growing, that is something you need to look at. And that is also something I've been implementing to enable me to be able to see the clients. I usually tell them, okay, fine, it's okay. But before we meet, kindly understand, we are going to meet for 1 hour, 2 hours. But before we meet, kindly send this deposit for consultancy. And this deposit will be reduced from the budget once we agree on the final pricing if I'm going to take the job. Because one thing you should realize, and this is what most of you usually go through, is a client calls you, you go to the office, you've used transport, or you do an online meeting, you are using your internet, he's taking your time, and at the end of the day, he goes and gets another developer to develop for you, to develop for them their project based on the input and the knowledge you shared with them. That knowledge is labor and it's quantifiable. So always learn to price that as consultants work. That is something that just came up as I recalled. I see Victor is asking, how do you price maintenance work? Frank, or who wants to take this, or Alista, how do you price maintenance work, support work?
Yes, okay, so yeah, if you had seen that document that I shared, there is a section there that talks about maintenance. So it all depends on your client's needs and the project that you're working on. So for an example, let's say it's a website. You know that with a website, every year you have to renew like the domain, the hosting, and maybe during that time you also might have to add some updates to the website, maybe make a few changes, upload some content, all that stuff. So you can calculate that since you are not doing that much work, you don't have to charge the same amount that you would initially for the project. You can charge a little bit less, but at least you'll still get recurring revenue as long as that project exists. So that's an example for a website, but the same can apply for any other project that you do.
Thank you, Alista. Danvik, you wanted to add something?
For me, usually I charge a percentage. You see, most companies charge a percentage of the value of the system. Basically, the cost that was developed of the system that was developed, you should charge maybe annually, let's say like 15-20% of that value of the whole system development. You charge that annually or something like that. Basically, that is usually the model that we as a company go for. So basically, around 20%, maybe it can be negotiated, but 20% of the value of the system is what we charge for maintenance. Because the bigger the system, the more the maintenance. Maybe you are integrating M-Pesa, you're integrating ABCD, and those are things that are like moving parts. So basically, the system, the bigger it is, the higher the support cost should be. So that's an easy way of making sure that the amount of work, based on the system, how big the system is, the amount of work, since it will somehow be relative, you also get back the amount that that is fair to you also. Because if you just put a blanket figure and you have too much cost or something like that, you have to like try to see how much value also am I giving for a year.
Thanks, Ludwig. So I think he said you need to value that and also put timelines, as in don't put a blanket support figure that has no ending. Always put timelines so that you can be able to revise them up, because somewhere along the way they might add a new support requirement and it will cost you more time. So that clause will help you upgrade your pricing. Yeah. So coming to the last question, because our time is up, Patrick has asked, how do you choose whether to take React Native? If you are to choose for a project, how do you choose between React Native and Flutter? Which one do you go for? Because they are both cross-platform development frameworks. Which one do you go for? Anyone who is able to answer this can go ahead, especially people who've had experience with both platforms.
I think I may.
Yes, Danvik.
If someone else has something to add, maybe they can. But for me, as most of other tech questions, the answer is always it depends. It depends on whether maybe you're developing a system for them that's like basically, let's say, like Harold mentioned, someone may have like an administration portal or a client portal separate to the app. So and maybe the app is using React. For you to share that business logic and whatnot, you'd go for React Native, because that's what makes sense for that specific aspect. Maybe sometimes you look at the budget. Maybe the client's budget doesn't allow you to do a native app because we know like the amount of effort needed. And if the client insists, maybe it also depends on if it's an MVP or something like that. So you can decide if it's an MVP, let me do with, let's say, something like Ionic, which is like you will end up doing it faster. Depends still. Just like most tech questions, the answer is it depends. It depends on like given aspect. You can't just say like this is the best framework, this is the best language, no, it doesn't work like that ever. Because you'll see, if I want to do maybe an AI project or a data analytics or data intensive project, I may go for Python. Not because I love Python, but because that is the effective tool. It's like if you have a hammer, then everything you find is a nail. So don't come with a hammer. Like know what option to go for depending on the project you've been given. If you've been given a screw, then go from your pocket, choose a screwdriver. Don't pick the hammer because all you know is the hammer. So it depends. That is the answer for me.
Thanks, Danvik. So as you said, it depends. Also, the other thing that depends is which of the two are you good in? So that's also another thing that you need to figure out, that which are you good in. And all programming languages and platforms, frameworks, they have their do's and don'ts, as in their ups and downs. So also look at those from a technology perspective and just and support perspective, and just know which one to go for. They don't actually have a stance, and also how your project also looks like is a big factor. someone is saying, Sam is saying, what factors to consider when saying a certain app has a certain value? And I think this was answered by Alistair. And what Alistair said, since we are running out of time, what Alistair said was that, look, what is the value that this project is bringing to the client? As in, how much revenue will it add to the client? If you are building them an app, and let's say they're a supermarket, they want an e-commerce platform, as Alistair said. I'm using his example. Let's say we take Tuskys, for example. Let me not use Tuskys, it's falling. Let me take Carrefour. If we take if we take Carrefour, for example, and they want an e-commerce platform, they're currently pushing revenues of, let's say, $1 billion in a month from their physical stores, and you want to build them an e-commerce store. And they tell you, from our projection, we think this online platform is going to push for us, let's say, $500 million. You can price it from there. That you tell them, I'm charging you this because this is the value that you want. And if you want this value, I have to build you something that is secure. Also, you have to bring in your marketing language inside there with the value that it is bringing them. That's how you value the project also. Apart from also what value you've put on yourself, that I can only take a minimum of this amount in terms of, these are the projects that this is actually how I charge per project. Sorry, I'm not killing Tuskys. I just wanted to use a positive example currently. My apologies on that. I don't know if our panelists have closing remarks because I'm fully gone. If you have any closing remarks, if I can start with Alistair, all the way from Zimbabwe. Any closing remarks on this topic?
Yes, I just want to say thank you very much for having me on. It was nice discussing with you all. And yes, as you mentioned, that pricing works differently for everybody. You just need to choose what works best for you and take it from there. Thanks.
Thank you, Alistair, and thanks for joining us all the way from Zimbabwe. And we look forward to also participating in your discussions in Zimbabwe. Harun?
So first of all is to thank maybe those who listen to us and maybe the organizers for organizing this. So maybe my one thing, it's a good thing that maybe Eric and the team also brought in the legal aspect. I cannot emphasize how much it is very essential to have a lawyer friend, or maybe either in your company, or because you can get like court scares once in a while, and in case you don't know the best way, it will be like very bad. So it's good, like just know the legal part of software development also. And then one thing I'll emphasize in, maybe which we didn't, it falls in the legal part, make sure you just take down payments before starting any projects to avoid like, I completed this website for this person and they did not like pay me for that. Take a down payment, whether it is 40%, 50% of the total project cost. It's very essential to avoid like a lot of conflicts and maybe saying people never pay for development, and also that falls under the contract. Once you go to the contract, you say like, once we sign this contract, it will require like 40% of the project cost to be paid first before any development can begin. If they don't pay, you don't even start. And this should apply to all clients, because at times you can have like, maybe let's say the president telling you to develop a software and you are maybe starstruck because you are wondering, hey, I'm working with the president, and you can maybe go ahead and start for free. But I should say, no matter what type of client, make sure they pay the down payment. It can be the president, it can be maybe someone not higher value client, but the moment they respect you as a professional, it's the moment like you go ahead. So make sure you have that down payment. That's all. Those will be my closing remarks.
Thanks, Harun, for that. And I think Harun has brought an interesting stuff, that always ensure you are paid before you start work, that they make a commitment. And I think, and he has mentioned the issue of the president. You guys remember the other day, the desk stories in Kenya, whereby the president visited some guys and they were talking about building desks for primary school. And those guys were promised that they'll be given part of the contract. Do you know what? The guys went ahead, borrowed money, built desks, and up to today, as we speak, they have not been given any payment by the government on the desks that they started building, and no contract has come their way. And so they are currently in debt as we talk. So thanks, Harun, for bringing that up. Let me give Yes, I think he's left. I wanted to give Frank. Is Frank with us to give his closing remarks, then Danvik. Then Olau will close for us and then answer any legal issues that have come up. If Frank is not in, Danvik.
Thank you, David, for hosting. By the way, this has been a very lively discussion, and I've actually learned one or two things from my peers, and I'll also like this another plug for Harun. Harun's company, AppsLab Limited, has AppsLab KE. I don't know if it's AppsLab Limited or AppsLab KE. They have a forum every Thursday called Geek Talk Thursday. For those people who have been asking about how to prepare, let's say, an SRS, how to prepare a contract, things to do with the business, they discuss a lot of things in terms of business, the business side of development. They discuss about productivity and whatnot. Just this is something that I usually, from time to time, I attend, and I would like to invite most of you to also attend. It's called Geek Talk Thursday, usually on Thursdays at 8:30 p.m. So if you have time, just join, and you'll be able to learn a lot. In fact, like the links she had shared in the chat are actually things that they have at one point gone through in their discussions about the business, running business, and they usually like have that touch of their company and how they are doing things and how they are learning new things. It actually helps a lot for anyone who is coming up. So I think that is also something I wanted to mention because Harun himself did not mention. So Harun, you're welcome.
Most of the times these things they kind of pass my mind, but yeah, thank you for maybe pointing out that.
Yeah, sure. Thank you again for hosting us, David.
Welcome.
It's a very good job you guys are doing. Let's continue the discussion. This is not where it ends. I know there are quite a number of things that we have not shared. That's why I would point you to other resources so that we then can't cover everything within the course of an hour, 30 minutes. So make sure you follow this up. Let's discuss this also on our groups, tech groups, whichever groups you're in, whether it's the ones for Python and all the other groups that developers are in Kenya, because we need to get to a point where, like, as developers, we get the respect that other developers, let's say in the Silicon Valley, are getting because of the value that they're giving to their clients. Let's just not be here like someone hears that you're a developer and you're not making even as much as they would expect. Let's keep that in mind. Also, we are trying to aggregate all the works done by developers in Kenya. We have like Made in Kenya. It's called madeinkenya.github.io. Like you'll find every development, let's say platform you're on. You'll find a group, a Telegram group, a WhatsApp group for your specific development framework. Just join. Let's like kind of unionize as developers so that we're not so detached from each other that we are not speaking the same language. Maybe someone goes out there, they don't have experience and whatnot, the client takes advantage of them. Then you come to a group and start discussing about these things. Let's discuss them before you go meet your next client so that it can be of help to you going forward. I think that is what. Have a good evening, all of you. I don't know whether Zimbabwe, I don't know.
Thanks, Danvik.
Yeah, have a good evening.
Thank you. Victor? Victor, you can give your closing remarks. You can unmute your mic. Your mic is still off, I think. Victor, your mic,
Okay.
yes.
Now I think I'm able to. Basically, I want to appreciate the organizers and the hosts of the entire session. I think I've learned a few other things from those who have contributed, and I think we've all gained. if anyone has got any other legal question, I think my email has been shared on the chat. But most importantly, I think my parting shot is be careful to be paid for the value of your product, because that's the service. And don't think that reducing it into writing is very expensive. It is expensive when you're not paid for it. Sawa. That's all. Enjoy your weekend, guys.
Thank you, Victor. I also just want to say thank you to all the panelists for taking your time to just share your experience and your knowledge with us. Thank you, each and every one of you, for taking time to just join us. I also want to give special thanks to Eric for being the Flutter lead and community lead, for just always organizing these things and for picking up topics of interest for members and just ensuring that we have panelists come on board. Thanks for the good job, and each and every other community member who has been participating in organizing these forums. We are grateful to each and every one of you. And thanks for joining and taking time. So we look forward to having you in our next discussion, which will be shared in the meetup group online. So you can sign up to the meetup group through the links that have been shared by Eric on the chat, so that you can be getting timely updates. And so for any legal thing, you can see Victor. We've shared his Twitter handle. We've shared his email. Reach out to him. For any tech question, you can join those Flutter groups, whereby we can be able to discuss with different developers and help you out on whatever issue you have. Thanks each and every one of you for joining. I don't know if Eric has any announcement as we do the closing. And my name is David. I didn't introduce myself. I'm a software developer. I run a company called Strategic Technologies. We do web and mobile development. Thank you, everyone. Eric, karibu.
It has been a great session. Thanks to you, David. Actually, I was just sitting and listening. Actually, I've learned a lot. Thanks to everyone that has joined. Thanks to the panelists. I don't think I have anything to add. What I can say, we'll be having another session on 21st of this month. We'll be talking about integrating Truecaller SDK. It's a new SDK. So
Next
we'll be...
next month.
Yeah, next month. Sorry about that. So yeah, I think it's all about that. I will share everything that we have talked about today in our YouTube channel, and I will teach about it. So thank you guys for joining. See you next time. Bye.
The video will be up on Monday. Bye-bye, everyone, and have a blessed weekend.
Mm-hmm.